I have two very simple questions for you. Is your podiatry business making the money that you feel it should be making for the amount of time you've been in podiatry? And are you having the time off with your family that you feel you deserve after all the time and effort you've put into your business? If you cannot answer yes to both of those questions, please go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, have a read through the coaching section and consider reaching out to me. I really look forward to talking to you and helping you where I can. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast is on to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Dr. Michael Filosi. He is a dentist, entrepreneur, and self-confessed business nerd. And what was interesting, I met Michael, how long ago was it? Over 10 years ago.
Yeah, getting close, I think. Yeah, somewhere in that vicinity. That's about right, I reckon, 10 years.
On the Gold Coast, yeah. I met Michael at a Practice Max dental conference. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Michael, he bought a dental clinic. It was a bit of a shithole, wasn't it? It had possums.
Description. Yep.
Possums in the walls. It was a total rubbish clinic. Something that most people would probably just walk past and think, I'm not interested in this place at all. However, Michael saw potential in this. And after so many years, what was it? How long did you have?
It was 10 years. 10
years.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
So I must have met you just as you were buying that.
I think you're right. Yep, it would have been bang on. Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So anyway, Michael turned this practice into one of the biggest, or if not the biggest practice in Adelaide with 35 staff, and eventually sold it off 10 years later. I'm just going to say for a mozza, but I have no idea. I don't want to know any figures, but he is one of the most inspirational people that I've had the pleasure of knowing. Every time I went to this dental conference and Michael was there, always put a smile on my face. So I recently reached out to him and said, Michael, I want you on the podcast just to talk about your career, the potential and what you saw in a business, because I know there's always practices for sale and sometimes people can't see the potential. But the other part of just an interesting fact is Michael has read how tall are you, 6'5"?
I'm 6'6", so 198 centimeters.
So he read his height in books stacked up. And I know one of those books was mine.
It was, absolutely. So the pile is behind me here for anyone watching on the video there, and there's some more in the bookshelf. But yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm a big boy, 6'6", and I read my height in business books, one on top of them, and I read your book and really enjoyed it. It was a really good read, and thank you for that kind intro, Tyson. That was lovely. I remember our first meeting, and I remember being there and a bit nervous, it's fair to say, and you came up and you were the first person to come up and say g'day and say hello, and it was lovely. I've been grateful to you for that since, and there's a lot to go up to the bloke sticking out like a sore thumb. So thanks for that.
6'6" dude.
100%, absolutely. So it was good, and we sort of jived very quickly. I think we had breakfast the next morning and away we went. So
we did, and we both had hair then too.
We did, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. So I think mine's long gone now. And we're in similar situations in that regard. That's what business ownership does to you, hey? But it's been good fun getting to know you and reading your work. And it helps me on my journey too. And it was, appreciate the intro. It was quite a ride because you're quite right. Bought it when everyone laughed at me. They thought it was, what the hell are you doing? Buying this practice with possums in the walls. And I remember actually one of my wife's friends' husband, he called me, he goes, did you buy the one with the grass and the gutters? And I was like, yeah, I did. And I was thinking like, you watch me, you're going to eat your words, champ.
Did you buy the building as well as
correct.
You bought the whole thing, the building and the business?
Spot on. So that was two separate negotiations with two different people actually. So I bought the business and then I also bought the building. And then 5 years later, I bought the building next door from a little old lady who died and demolished her house and turned it into a patient car park. So we ended up having not just the business, but then the building, but also the one next door, which became the patient car park. So there's a whole lot of different negotiations and things happening in order to secure all of that. But I've since sold the business and I no earn out, no clawbacks, anything like that. But I still own the building. So they pay me rent each month and happy days.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I sold my practice. I still own the building. Yeah, got rent for the next 10 years and until they moved out.
The way to do it.
Yeah, owning your own building, your own property, if you get the chance of doing it, it's one of those things that, funny enough, we put it off for so many years when we probably could have purchased something. But I don't know why. For some reason, we thought it was out of our reach. The banks wouldn't loan us the money. As soon as we went and asked the bank, and the bank said, yeah, we'll give it to you without a problem. You're making the money. As soon as we did that, one of the best decisions we ever made.
I completely agree. I got into it. I was very clear. I'd worked so in dentistry, there's so much plumbing and lead in the walls, and you can't just move easily, right? And so I was really clear. I'd worked in a practice as an employee that had to move, and it was hellish. It was absolutely hell. So I was very clear of, if I'm going to buy the business, I absolutely am buying the building too. Like, there's no way in hell I'm going to get kicked out of here. So as long as if I buy the building and I pay the mortgage, then the bank can't move me on and I don't have a landlord. I was really clear that I wanted to buy both. And I completely agree. I think it always feels out of reach, but I'm so glad I did it, right? And I'm so glad I bought it. And it gives you that asset. It's a clever move to do. I agree with you. If you can look at buying a building or your building, then jump on it. Absolutely do it.
So before you purchased the possum infested clinic, you were working for somebody else, I take it, beforehand. You didn't have your own practice. So how many years do you work first before you chose you were going to open up your own business?
So 10 years. I was pretty nervous about buying a business, to be honest. And I went back and did some business study, and I thought, not so incorrectly at the time, I thought, if I get an MBA or something like that, then I'll know everything about business and I'll be really good at it and I'll make no mistakes. And it's rubbish, right? Like, it's absolute, it just doesn't work that way. So in the end, literally, it wasn't formally for sale, the business I bought. I was having coffee. I believe fortune turns on small moments. It's those little incidental things that change the course of your life. I caught up for coffee with a guy who's a dentist, but I've only ever seen him once, right? So I've got dental mates, of course, and you see them hundreds of times. But this guy, I've caught up with him only ever once, and he just set up a practice. And I said to him, look, do you know of any for sale? And he said, yeah, there's one that's quite run down on Fullerton Road. And I said, I think I know the one. And I literally drove from the coffee, said goodbye. I drove straight there and I knocked on the door. And I said, oh, hi, I'm Michael. I heard there's a possibility of buying in. And it went from there. So it was never formally advertised. And other people looked at it before I did too, but they all just turned their nose up at it basically. Said, no, too hard, not interested. But I fell in love and I could see what it could become. And yeah, so I was all in straight from the start pretty much. But yeah, from that conversation and just jumping on it, and as I said, just driving straight from the coffee to this place, and they could have told me to get nicked, but knocked on the door and fancy your arm and have a crack, and yeah, went from there.
So did you buy part of the practice first and then work there and then take over the rest? It wasn't just, boom, you bought the whole thing.
No, it's a really good question. So there's another gentleman working there, he's a lovely man, and he was like 30-something years older than me. He was like 7 years older than my mum, I think. So he was like a father figure in some ways. But in other ways, he just liked doing dentistry, but he wasn't very business savvy. So in other ways, I was trying to teach him to go, hey, we can do things better here. So basically what I did was I bought in with him. I bought 50%, but I also had a condition to buy him out 5 years later, right? So that gave me an entry point, but it gave him an exit as well. Because I didn't want, when he came to sell his part, I didn't want him selling to someone else. I wanted the whole thing. I was there for that. And I didn't want him having to try and sell to someone else. I don't want to work with someone else. So I made it really clear from the start. I didn't just negotiate my entry point, but I also made a condition of the contract was that I get first rights to buy his half at a agreed upon time and an agreed upon price in the future, which is good for me, but it's good for him too, because suddenly he can go, well, that's it. I'm done. I've sold my first half now. I'll sell the other half in 5 years' time or whatever it was. And then he knows he doesn't have to worry about going to market and finding someone else and all the things. And I don't have to worry about him doing that because it's in the contract that, mate, you can't, like, one, it's in the contract, but two, I own the building. Like, if I have to change the locks if necessary, if you want to sell, like, it ain't happening. So it worked well for both of us. And it's one of those very rare business partnerships that it never faltered. Like, we never had a falling out. I liked him as much or more at the end as what I did at the start. It never soured. We've got enormous respect for each other. We're different people in lots of ways, but yeah, he's a really nice guy and I got along well with him, and he's a really good dentist and very good with patients. And yeah, so we knew we both got what we wanted out of it, which is really cool. I got my entry and he got his exit, and we both knew what that was going to look like. Happy days.
I love the process that you went through though, where you went into him, you approached him on to buy 50% and then buy out the rest of it in 5 years. You agreed upon what that price was going to be in 5 years, because I've heard places where they'll buy in for a certain percentage. It might be 30%, it might be 40%. And they want to buy more down the track. But every time they want to buy more, it ends up being so much more expensive. And they're the ones there that are actually working and building up the business. 100%. And all of a sudden, there's this resentment that builds up between them.
Tyson, you bang on. And I think everyone is just interested. It's the storming, forming. At the start, everyone's all night. But you've got to think about not just how do I enter this, but how do I set it too. So I was really clear. Look, you're 30 years older than I am. You're going to be selling before I do. I need to know how I can buy your half, and I need to know now. So at the very, very start, I negotiated that and made it really clear. So you bang on. I didn't want that. And I knew I was going to move heaven and earth to grow it. And with respect to the gentleman I bought in with, he just wanted to do dentistry. So I knew any business gain was going to be because of what I was doing, not because of what he was doing, right? So I didn't want him then, when I came to buy, going, oh, well, now the business is worth so much more. And I go, yeah, it's because of me. He goes, well, I still own half, champ. This is what it's worth. So I had the foresight in that regard I bought his half. And then
it's really smart.
I also said to him, I want to buy your half again in 5 years' time at the same thing. And he went to his accountant. He came back. He said, look, my half plus CPI for 5 years. I said, yep, fair. Let's do that. I was perfectly happy with that. So I didn't argue the toss with him on what he wanted as the buy-in price, because I knew I'd need his help down the track as well with things. So, and it was a fair price. So I actually didn't haggle at all with him on when I went to him and said, what are you looking at as a buy-in price here? And then when I said to him, yep, okay, cool, I'll buy you out in 5 years' time at my purchase price plus CPI for 5 years. Yeah, obviously we talked about, did some massive renovations, and I foot the bill for everything. Every piece of equipment that went in, that was my, I paid for it, because it didn't make any sense for him too. And I got that. What's the point in him having to pay when he's going to sell it in 3 years' time back to me? It worked out well. But yeah, absolutely. Having the foresight at the start to go, look, this is going to end at some point, one way or another, and thinking about what that looks like. And as you say, I didn't want it to grow and then end up paying back for the goodwill that I'd generated and the hard work I'd done. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Or suddenly going back to the negotiating table, I was like, not interested. So it was super easy discussions around it all at the time. When it came time to sell, it was like, yep, cool, let's do this. And we looked at the contract and okay, cool, here's the and it was we were both really clear on it. And there was clarity there that, yeah, there was literally zero ill word said, because we knew exactly what it was. And let's just dig up the contract. Okay, cool. Yep, here's what it comes out at. Let's check what CPI has been for the past 5 years. And then, yeah, make the payment. So it worked well. And again, it gives him clarity too. And it avoided, like you said, that tension of me wanting to buy more and him holding out for price, and you both hate each other.
Yeah, and I think any podiatrist listening to this, whether you're an employer or an employee, is I think everybody can learn something from that, because I know there's a lot of podiatrists who want to sell their practices, and they're prepared to sell part of it now and the balance in the future. I think everybody can actually learn 100% from that process. But like, even though I sold my clinic 10 years ago, if I had a clinic now, that would be a fantastic thing for me at my age now, thinking I sell it now and in 5 years, I've got a guaranteed amount that we've agreed upon.
Totally.
And the clinic's not going to go backwards.
Yeah.
But you're guaranteed you're actually going to get the money. So you can actually really plan for your exit, and the person buying it can actually really plan for their entrance into actually owning the whole business. It's ideal.
Completely agreed. Works, yeah. And that's the thing. That person exiting gets clarity, and the person entering gets clarity too. And they get to then, they're going to invest in the place, because they go, hey, I know I'm going to be buying it out in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. So they're going all guns blazing. So the senior partner's got this little jackrabbit going hard at it as well to grow the things. And you don't have to then revisit it. You're both happy. You've negotiated at the start. I'm a really strong advocate for that for both parties. As you say, you just both get clarity, and you go, cool, I guess we'll just get on with working then. And isn't that what you want? You don't want the headaches of nighttime or kicking the can down the road knowing you're going to have to come back to the negotiating table. Well, that sucks. So sort it out at the start, be really clear on it, both agree to it, and then you both get really both get direction and clarity. And I hate uncertainty. I don't want to have to worry about that stuff. Getting rid of that just means I slept better at night, and so did he.
Yeah, like I said, I know some people that have bought into practices and what they've gone through. I know some that are trying to sell practices at the moment and can't. And I know other people that have bought practices and have got them at a great price with the same thing, with the future payment. And that's always worked really well. Totally. So I've got a question for you. You went in there, you bought 50%. What were the first couple of changes that you thought needed to be done straight away, because you were going to foot the bill?
Yeah.
So what did you do first?
It's a really good question, Tyson. So a couple of things, I think. I came in with an agenda for change. That was clear, right? And everyone understood that. The place was run down. Everyone knew whoever's coming in, they're going to be making some changes. I felt like it was implied. I shouldn't have to convince people, hey, this place might need a bit of TLC, right? So the first thing was just to show staff that I was going to do really good dentistry and look after patients well. So fortunately, my room was next to the receptionist's office, so she could hear, and she would comment, you're really nice. The patients like you. They liked the other gentleman. And they goes, yeah. So that was the thing. Straight away, they could see you give a toss. You care about doing good work. So then I'd won their hearts, right? Because they go, yep, this is a guy that clearly is doing the right thing by a patient. So that was the first thing. And the second thing I think that I did was whenever I had time off from my lunch break, I was into it. So I was pulling down trees, I was taking out door frames. I wanted them to see that I was not there to muck around and I was going to work my guts out. So between those two things, I think one, there's the practical starting point of just doing the work that needs doing, but also show them, hey, demonstrate character to them, which is looking after patients. And then demonstrate an impetus for action, a bias for action of like, okay, cool, I've got a spare half hour. I'm going to knock out that door frame in the hallway or something like that. And they could see he's getting on with it. So I think that was the thing. Make it clear that I'm doing the right thing by the patient so that then the staff are on board, but then also just crack in. So get underneath the sink and figure out why something's leaking or whatever else there and demonstrate. I talk about the fact I'm not a natural leader. I'm not someone who can give a rallying cry, but what I can do is demonstrate the things I need my staff to show. And that means I can also hold them to those same standards. So treating patients really well and working your guts out. It's like, yep, I expect that of everyone. And I wanted them to see that. So demonstrating those things, it makes it really clear on what expectations of other people are. So no one else can take a short step to go, well, the boss is in there doing X, Y, and Z. So I can't really slacken off here. So I think those are probably the couple of things. Get the hearts and minds of the existing team members and then just start doing stuff. Just start working at it and making changes.
Okay, with how many staff were there when you took it over, and were there any staff members that didn't buy in to the Michael Filosi philosophy?
Yeah, totally. So another good question. There were 5. So the funny thing was our first Christmas party was around the other gentleman's dinner table. There was 5 of us sitting there. And then tell the story, our last Christmas party, we had these 3 massive long benches at a restaurant. I was like, wow, this has come quite a way, right? But were there anyone who didn't? No, I don't think so. That didn't. There was one lady that we didn't carry on her tenure. So I said to the other gentleman that I was buying in with, look, I'll agree on what you're saying, but I'm not taking her on. Like she'd come in pink sneakers and like an Adidas jumper and just wear that at the front desk. I'm like, it's not happening. Not on my watch, you know. So
and was she allowed to do that prior to you taking it over?
100%. Totally she was. And that's the thing. So I came in, the other gentleman, such a lovely guy, but too nice for his own good. So staff got away with stuff they shouldn't have. And I was like, I'm not doing that. We're a professional dental practice and everything speaks, right? Everything is marketing. So having a receptionist in tracksuit pants and the patient's going to think we're doing average work, and we're not. You and me are working really hard and they're doing really good work, but the receptionist is looking going, I look pretty slack. So we didn't take her on. I think she saw it coming too. I think she knew her, and we did it with kindness, right? I didn't enjoy doing that. I never enjoyed laying someone off or getting when someone wasn't. So it wasn't fun. I have no joy in saying that. It was absolutely the right thing, but absolutely no joy in, I did this, I did that. No, I didn't like doing it, but it needed to be done. But the rest all broadly bought in, I think it's fair to say. But then it was just growth. So very quickly, the new team members outnumbered the old ones. Because we went from 5 to 35, it ended up being there weren't that many there who had been there at the start. Most of the people had come somewhere along the journey. And the good thing with that is that you've employed them all, so they've only ever worked for you. So they will march to the beat of your drum. They're not thinking, what does this other guy think, whatever else. It's like, look, I put you in this position, like I'm the boss. You need to get on board with what I'm wanting to do. As we grew, everyone there was broadly speaking new, I suppose.
Yeah, I've got another question that's led on to something, because it reminds me of a book that I was reading called What Got You Here Won't Get You There, which you've probably read it. But it's the same. I've always said to people, the staff members that you have today when your business is turning over, say, $500,000, most will not be there when you're turning over $1 million, and most won't be there once you go beyond that. So when you took over the business, you had the 5 staff members there. One left straight away, left 4.
Yep.
You brought in a replacement. They started beating to your drum.
Totally.
How long was it before all the remaining 4 had left, and had the clinic doubled in turnover? Did they not able to grow with the clinic as it grew?
So the first thing I'd say is you're bang on right, okay, that you're going to get turnover, particularly if you've got an agenda for change. So the first team members, one of them was pretty close to being ready to retire, and she was a good egg. So we had someone else come in who took over from her, or took over that role. So she left because she was ready to retire. A couple of the young nurses, the dental assistants, one moved on. She was always looking for the bigger, better deal, and that's okay. And another one ended up doing speech pathology. So I reckon within a couple of years, we didn't have anyone else who had started there, we had one lady come back who wasn't there specifically when I started there, but she'd worked there previously. So she remembered what it was like, but everyone else there was new. So within a couple of years, everyone there was less than 2 years tenure except for me and the colleague that I brought in with. So you're right, it does change very quickly. And along the journey, it changed too. And we had people that felt we were growing too fast. They didn't want to work in a practice that size, so they got off. And on my staff folder, I had an inactive staff folder of all the people who'd left. There's a lot of names there. And it's not because we were turfing people out, but people come and go, and you go, oh, that's right, this person, that person, something else. So there's going to be those who stick around, absolutely. But recruitment's a dark art. It's really hard to find people who...
Oh, it is.
And very few people will stick with you the whole way. And very few people, you are the right people to stick with you the whole way. Like you said, we had one lady, it's funny, right? It's about just slightly off topic, but related though, right? We had very high standards and we were a very well-run practice. We needed another dental nurse because we were growing, and we had this lady come in and she was experienced and she was really good. She was good. We offered her the position. She said no. Oh, can we ask why? She said, it's like NASA. I don't want to work like that. Like she used that word, it's like NASA. And I was like, well, it's interesting that she declined it based on the fact that our standards were too high for her. And that's not the worst thing in the world either. We say, if you want to just chill out and do nothing, this is not the place for you. We're really explicit in that. We are a busy practice. We expect people to work hard. We enjoy our work and we treat each other well, but you're going to be busy. And yeah, she was like, no, she said, yeah, it's like NASA. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's kind of good, actually. The fact that she's seen this is very systems based and that we work very hard and we've got a process to follow. But yep, you lose people along the way, absolutely. And it's funny looking at the staff photos over the years, the group photos. That's right. And you see the attrition and you go, there's only a few faces there that stuck with it the whole journey. So yeah, it's people come and people go.
Yeah, we had the same thing happen. And it was podiatrists and it was also reception staff, support staff. Some were with us 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
Some were there 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, just either couldn't keep up with how we did things or said we worked too hard or we pushed them too hard. And it's that you have certain standards that you live by.
Totally.
And I always just think I would never ask anyone to do anything in my business that I'm not prepared to do myself.
100%.
And if the toilet needed to be cleaned, it needs to be cleaned. Yeah. And I'd probably cleaned it probably a couple of times. But my wife used to say the same thing. She had no hassles just getting in there. If it needs to be cleaned, you clean it. You set these standards and you can't drop the ball for certain people.
100% agree. I remember we had one really good school leaver and she was great. And we're like, okay, let's get more school leavers in. And then we had a bunch of dads. And I remember one trying to explain to this girl to turn off the aircon because leaving the aircon on a Friday night over the weekend burns through money.
Yes.
Like, she rolled her eyes so far back in her head, I thought she was going to fall backwards. I was like, are you serious? So it is funny that, and I think I agree with you about, everyone knew I worked hard, but we had someone do a whole lot of graffiti on one of the walls over summer. And it was 42 degrees outside. So no one else wants to go outside even just to go get a coffee or an iced coffee down the street. And I made a point of getting out there in a singlet and a hat and scrubbing that goddamn wall and getting rid of that graffiti. And I knew the staff could see me because the staff room overlooked the car park. But it's making a point of the big guy, the owner's out there in the 42 degree heat. Next time he says, can you take the bins out? I'm going to be doing it because he doesn't shirk anything. So I've got no excuse. He could send one of us out there. He could pay someone to come in and get it done. So absolutely. And you don't have to do it all the time. You shouldn't be cleaning the toilets all the time, but you've got to take the bins out or pick up the bit of floss that's on the ground or whatever else there. And you got to lead by example enough that if something needs doing that they go, look, I know that Michael would do that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I can't. So I get it. I completely agree.
Yeah, and I used to always have a thing when it came to the bathrooms is you always be checking them throughout the day.
Yeah, totally.
Because if a new patient walks into your clinic and walks in there and the patient prior to them has left a doogie there, they're going to blame you. They're going to think it's yours. They're not going to think, was it another patient? So I always say it's one of those things. Those sort of areas need to constantly be checked. And if I was walking past the bathrooms, I would go in there and always have a look just to make sure everything was above board as I wanted it to be.
2 points on that, and I agree. You got to walk in your patient's shoes. So look at the practice the way they would. So 2 things with that. In a dentistry, no one looks at the ceiling, but every patient looks at the ceiling. They're lying in the chair. So if you've got cobwebs up there, every single person is noticing them, but no one who works there is. So have a think about that. The practice I used to work at when I first job, all the patients came in through the front door, all the staff went in through the back door. And there was this, like someone's dog had done it. I hope it was a dog. Done a big crap right on the front door. There was apparently there for like 4 or 5 days, but not a single staff member walked in the front door to actually even notice it. So every patient for a week was walking over this thing and no one had any idea. So I agree with you. It's funny. The gym I go to is pretty cruddy, actually. And it's interesting because the paper towels you can go a week and no one puts the paper towels back, right? It's just like, do you have any systems? Does anyone check these things? And the other branch of it, I was there today, everything is done well. And all the kettlebells are all lined up nicely. And it's just standards. And someone's checking and someone's not. And one of them, the place is a pigsty and a mess and they've got no standards and no one's checking those things. And the other one, you can tell that the soap will go a week and not be replenished. And you're like, is anyone here coming in and checking these things? Like you said. So you've got to be mindful of those things. And it absolutely reflects on the business and the business owner. So just be good at your job and do the little things and get them right. So I agree. You're preaching to the choir, Tyson.
So curious, you took over the business, we've worked through the staff. What were some of the first business systems that you put in place that you think had the biggest impact from the start?
So the first thing we did, it was literally paper and pen. So when I got there, we didn't have a computer in the whole place. We didn't have a website. We didn't even have an answering machine. It was literally coming in on the ground floor. So,
and we're only talking 10 years ago, aren't we?
10 years ago, 2015, 100%.
No computers.
No, literally, if you called on the weekend, there was no answering machine. Like, it just would ring through, right? Or if you called outside of hours. My first thing I think was to go and buy like an $80 answering machine, right? And plug it in and be like, at least you're going to capture some calls. We'll get a nicer phone system pretty shortly. But I just want to make sure if someone calls and we're not here, that we can actually call them back. So getting computers, getting dental software, it's always that thing of like, which goes first, the chicken or the egg? And I think, what did we do? I think new uniforms as well. I wanted the patients to see that things were going to change, right? So even simple things like that, some bright new uniforms to show, hey, a lick of paint out the front and sharpen it up a bit, even though we're about to demolish it. But just, I wanted them to see things are about to happen. And I think it was good for staff morale as well. So we just did some things like that, nothing too dramatic initially that was going to scare either patients or staff off. But I wanted them to see little things that there was going to be an improvement with. Then we got computers. We got to pick our dental software, which was good. So people could very quickly start to pick up on what we're doing. But I think just sharpening the place up a little bit initially, just the little touches, a lick of paint in the waiting room and things. Do you know what? Actually, Tyson, I remember the first thing. There were these horrible chairs in the waiting room that would have been there for 30 years. I went to IKEA or something and our color was green. I went and bought 6 new green plastic chairs and put them in the waiting room, right? So they were $80 each. I don't know. They weren't big money, but like these old chairs, they were stained and everything, but I just whacked them in my car and drove them there. I'm like, at least they got something nicer to sit on now. They weren't the nicest chairs in the world that we bought, but that was something. It was demonstrating changes on the way. We're upgrading this place. So that'd almost be the first thing I think, is to go, those chairs are super easy to replace. I don't need to plug in anything. I don't need to forward think this too much. I'm not going to have an outcome going forwards of, do I do this or that? So let's just get some nice chairs in for the patients to sit on, that when they sit their back, and every patient's got to sit in them, they're going to go, that's a bit nicer than last time. And it's a portent of what's to come.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I'm trying to get my head around. That was only 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2016, and it's a clinic that has no computers.
Correct.
No answering machine. Everything is written probably in a paper diary and rubbed out and crossed out.
That's exactly right.
So I take it they didn't have a recall system or any reactivation systems
Tyson,
to keep track of patients?
No, none of that stuff. The gentleman that I bought him, he was the busiest dentist in Adelaide. That's what I did have, is stacks of patients, right?
Yeah.
So I asked to look at their appointment book. If I'm going to buy in, how busy are they? And I just kept folding forward weeks and weeks. And just about every 15, 30 minutes, it was full of lead pencil, right? Like, he was busy. He had no interest in trying to recall. That's not a criticism of him, but he was so in demand that he didn't have help, right? So part of my thing was, hey, I'm an able set of hands. I can take your overflow and maybe we'll get patients in for their checkup and they're clean and for definitive treatment, not just get them out of trouble. And as I said, not to critique the other guy, because he was doing everything.
Was he a solo practitioner?
More or less. There was another guy in there who, he wasn't much chop. So he was float in and float out, was interested in other things. But the practice was built on this other gentleman's hard work and good work. So I just modernized it, really. It definitely had the patient base there. But yeah, there was, exactly right. It was like a appointment book, like literal book, like paper book with lead pencil, and trying to find someone's appointment. You couldn't look them up. You'd have to scroll through and try and find their name and wrap it out. So yeah, that was the go with that. It's funny because it's right next to a park and there's a whole lot of possums, and they deposited 30 years of macadamia nut carcasses in the roof, right? So I was up there like scooping them all out. We pulled one wall down and we just about got like an avalanche of these little buggers like landing on top. The builder took a photo. He'd seen nothing like it. It certainly needed some work. But I think, the chairs were as simple as anything, but simple but profound, of like change is happening, you know? And yeah, so I think it was uniforms for staff.
Yep.
And the first time they'd ever had personalized uniforms with like a monogram of the practice, and then chairs for the patients. That's the first couple of things.
It's funny. And sometimes it's the simplest things that you can do in a practice that can make the biggest change. And I've seen clinics where they've got the computers, they've got all the toys, they've got all the equipment, and then I'll see their staff behind the reception counter, and they're all wearing different outfits, and some are wearing things that my wife would say she shouldn't be wearing that.
Yeah.
Just some things that are inappropriate.
Totally.
They're mismatched, and it doesn't match what the business is actually trying to do.
100%.
So I think having a nice uniform that looks good on everybody is an absolute must. That's not always the easiest thing to do either.
Mate, you're exactly right. It's so true. I'm thinking back because I can think of what the girls look like. And we had all sorts of, we had very young and very old. We had very different shapes and sizes too, but they all agreed on something. It was a nice color. It was the first time they'd had a nice, I think I just wore cardigans before, like just basic ones from camp, which is fine. But now they actually had a proper nice uniform and they looked good, but also that they felt good. They were like, hey, I've actually got something. They walked a bit taller in these uniforms, and we had a couple of iterations of them. But you're right, suddenly they were all wearing the same thing. They took pride in wearing them. They felt good about wearing them. They'd agreed on what they were going to get, so we didn't have some people liking them and not liking them, and made them walk taller. And it gives a more professional sense rather than having everyone coming in and whatever they feel like. So yeah, much made a big difference. Yeah, just for starters, absolutely.
Okay, so you've got the uniforms, the chairs, you've done a paint job, you've started pulling down walls, so you've given a bit of an aesthetic, so make it more pleasing on the eye. Then you've got computers and started computerizing things. And I'm sure that frightened a couple of staff members who had not used them before. Yeah. Did anyone leave when the computers came in?
So the lady who was the practice manager, I think she was not keen to take them on. So I think when it came time, which is fine, like I kind of knew that. It wasn't a sticking point in terms of arguing over it. Like she understood we needed computers, but just having done it for so long. So that was like a segue to the next stage. But everyone else, by then we started to have some younger ones in. The one that I got rid of, she wouldn't have lasted with the computers at all. Yeah. So I foresaw that as well. But so the computers themselves, we didn't get any kickback from. But I think one of the ladies timed her exit with that, which I totally appreciated and I totally get. So no dramas at all with that there. So that then everyone, when we got them, could work with them.
So once you got the computers in, because I remember when we went from a paper diary to a computer, and it was in the year 2000. So it was a few years before 2016.
Yeah, it's it, absolutely.
It was when the Millennium Bug was going to wipe us all out. We got the computers that year. And so once you had the computers in place, then I take it, then all the other systems started falling into place. Because once things were computerized, it was probably a lot easier to manage information, gather information back out of the practice, knowing what patients were coming and going, how the practice was performing.
Totally, all those things. So the computers, there's a bit of a lag phase where you input all the information for everyone, but you've only got to do that once. You know? So you put all the information in. The next big thing, we did the first renovations. So it was like, because we had I can say this now, but the autoclave was in the staff room next to the sink, right? Like it was not ideal. So we did the first lot of renovations, which was to overdo the whole thing. So we literally went from 2 chairs to 4 to 6. And we had a lovely new staff room, and we had sterilization bay and the whole lot. Like it was really swish. So that was the next lot that we did. We undertook huge renovations and put in new dental chairs and just made everything look cutting edge, basically. Like it was really well done by the end of it there. There wasn't a square inch of that place that didn't have new carpet, new paint, new roof, extension, everything. Every room got redone. And funnily enough, we only lasted like 6 months in that before we're now bursting at the seams again. And I knew the little old lady next door was 99. And I remember saying to my practice manager, or she might have said to me, I think we need to buy her out. I think we need to do this again. I thought we were done. I was like, happy days. This is my legacy project. But it was like, we'd only just started. And then we ended up buying next door and then basically redoing it again. So the car park at the back lasted only a year before we pulled it all up and then built to the back fence. So we kept all the clinic rooms in place, but the reception area needed complete redesign, right? So because there's a very big difference between when it started off with 2 dental chairs and then when you need to go, how are we going to fit 10 dental chairs? How do we do the workflow? So we didn't change the whole, but what we did was the little old lady's house we demolished. We created a car park on her property, which allowed us on our existing property, the car park was at the back, spot on. So we could then build to the back fence. So we used to have the car park around the back. But then instead, we then literally just filled up the physical footprint of that entire parcel of land with building, right? We just went right to the back fence as far as you could possibly go. in order to, because then we didn't need a car park anymore because they were going to park next door. So what we did, it wasn't just a simple add-on. We ended up, as part of that, we redid the staff room again. The whole reception area was actually the hardest piece of the puzzle because we overlooked some parklands. It was really obvious to have all the clinic rooms overlooking the greenery. Like, that's pretty obvious, right? But it's like, how do you do everything else? That was actually the tricky thing of figuring out that workflow. So yeah, we ended up having to do a redo and then build right to the back fence there.
So how many chairs did you end up with in the end?
10.
Okay. So when you went in there was 2 chairs when you first took it over. So you bought in, 5 years later, you bought him out. Mm-hmm. Then you expanded it to 10 chairs. Then 5 years later, you've decided, I'm going to sell.
Yeah, so we got the 10 chairs just before I decided to sell, actually. So it was like, but we'd been fitted out for 10 chairs for a while there. So we had the rooms, we just hadn't put the dental chairs in. So begin with the end in mind, right? So we had some spare rooms initially, and we're like, do we get a physio in? Do we get a podiatrist in? What do we do? And I was like, no, we're going to fill them out pretty quickly. But the 10th chair that we'd had installed, actually, that never got used. I literally bought it 3 months before I sold, right? And we'd always buy chairs in increments of 2. We never just bought 1 chair. So we bought the 9th and the 10th chair. And the 9th chair got used straight away, but the 10th chair didn't. So at the very end, I sold without that chair ever having been used, but we're using all the other 9 and we had 1 spare ready to rock and roll. So I bought it at 2 chairs, then we went to 4 to 6, then another big renovation to 8 to 10, and sold at that point there. And I was off the tools completely then. I wasn't seeing patients the last couple of years that I was a business owner. So even though I'm a dentist by profession, I figured out, look, with this many people, I need to be focused on working on the business, not in the business. And I can't be seeing patients and then running the business. So the clinicians would see patients and I'd sit in my office and do emails and check spreadsheets and negotiate with suppliers and all those sorts of things. So my role changed very much to a true business owner. I generated my income from the business, not from my own personal exertion as a dentist.
And I'm pretty sure I heard you say this on the Savvy Dentist podcast. Mm-hmm. And if anyone hasn't listened to the Savvy Dentist podcast, it's a great podcast. Dr. Jesse Green, a mutual friend of ours, is the host of that one. But I'm pretty sure I heard you saying there that as a dentist, you thought you were a fairly average dentist.
Yeah.
But as a business owner, you were bloody awesome.
That's it, mate. So I figured out, like everyone who gets into professions, be it podiatry, dentistry, med, psych, all these things, I was a high achiever at school and I thought, happy days, I'm going to kick butt. And then I realized there was a really hard ceiling. The technical skills of dentistry did not come easy to me at all, right? At all. There were a lot of people who were a lot better at it than what I was. I'm like, well, this sucks. And no matter how hard I tried, other people could do work that to my eye looked orders of magnitude better than what I could do. But I was serviceable, right? There were some things I was very good at, like taking teeth out, but anything artistic, Tyson, like I just don't have that eye, right? Like I can't see the shapes and the colors in the same way that some people can. Some people can just see, or they do work and it looks like teeth. Mine would still look like, if you knew what you were looking at, it looked like composite resin, like the restorative material. It didn't look like teeth, whereas some people can do it and you go, that is amazing, that is art. So you're exactly right. I had this dilemma of what do I do here? Like I'm never going to be the best clinical dentist in Adelaide. And I was like, but I reckon I can have the best practice. I think that's absolutely a game I can play and a game that I can win. I reckon I can kick ass at this. I think I'm going to be better than anyone else. And I was. I did a really good job at that. And I ended up, going from, not many people, Tyson, can say they've had the worst business of their type in their industry in their city and the best. I can. I bought it at the worst and I sold it at the best. I've seen, so somewhere out there, there's a law practice, which is the worst. And there's also another one that's the best. There's a mechanics that's the worst. I've had both. And I've seen the journey between the two. But I was pretty sure, I think I can play this game called business and I think I can win and win big at this thing called business. I think I can be really good at this in a way that I'm not going to be really good as a dentist, in a way that I see it. There's a hard ceiling on my skills at this thing called dentistry that other people are naturally better at it than me. So I can either keep toiling and doing that, or I can try and play this other game, which is business. And you bang on. I had this light bulb moment of play a different game, Michael. Play the game of having the best practice rather than being the best dentist.
I think that's why we got on so well, because we both had a real interest in business. I'd like to say I was a pretty good podiatrist. When it came to making orthotics, I could see what was going to get made before it was ever made. I could visualize it because I was going to be an art teacher. I wasn't going to be a podiatrist.
Yeah.
So I could visually see things. But I always struggled. As soon as something got over 3 syllables, I couldn't say the word.
Interesting.
Which made it very good for me. Doing exams was easy. I could write it, but I couldn't say it.
Yeah.
But I took that to my advantage because when I spoke to patients, I could dumb things down.
Yeah.
And it was for their benefit, but it was also, I found it difficult actually explaining things in very technical terms. So I always knew I was never going to be that podiatrist that was going to get on stage and talk about a particular podiatry problem because I couldn't say the words.
Interesting.
I would get tongue-tied. I understood it and I knew what to do and I could treat it. Whereas business, I could get up there and talk about that all day.
Yeah. I think that's really clever. And there's a huge parallel between the two of us, what we've just talked about. Absolutely. It's turning that essentially what can be a weakness and pivoting on that and going, well, how do I, like, it's funny, right? I wrote an article on LinkedIn about this, about constraints and about sometimes constraint can actually help to focus you. The fact that, so you had that, I had that. And it's funny, I'm a John Farnham fan and you're the voice, that song with the bagpipes, right? And they did the recording for that. I watched the doco on it, but bagpipes can only be played in the key of F, I think it is, right? But they'd recorded it in a different key. And they're like, well, what do we do? If we want these bagpipes in, we're going to have to re-record it. But the constraint of going, bagpipes are F, we record an F, actually ended up generating this legendary song that everyone knows and it's super cool. They were going to use a pan flute, which would have sucked, would have been horrible.
Yeah.
Right? So actually, having the constraint, actually, instead of having a million different choices, having that constraint of bagpipes play an F, we record the song in F, we're going to sing it in this key, actually made the whole thing better. And I think for me as well, having that constraint of going, you are not the best technical dentist, Michael, helped me narrow my eyes a bit and go, but I can play this other game, much like you found that. So constraints aren't such a bad thing. They can make your focus more intent and they can end up getting a better result as a byproduct. I think we get caught up on choice, but you can have too much choice too. Sometimes just kind of having one or two options only makes life a whole lot easier.
I think it gets very complicated for people when you have too many options. Totally. And they reckon, just a bit of a side joke, they reckon the reason toilet paper is white is because if you had it on the wall in multiple colors, no one could ever choose which one to use.
It's interesting.
And they'd be sitting in there 3 times longer than what they already do.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think they've done studies with yogurt. I think when they do yogurt tastings at supermarkets, if you give people 3 choices to taste, they'll probably try them all and buy one. If you give them 20 choices, they'll try a couple, but be unsure they haven't tried the best one and not buy it. You can literally end up selling less for giving people more choice. Whereas if you just give them 2 or 3 choices, it's like the chocolate or the strawberry. They try both, go, yeah, chocolate, thanks. If you give them 20, they'll try 2 or 3, but go, oh, I can't really ask for any more. I've already had 3. Or maybe that other one's, oh, no, look, I'll think about it. So 100% analysis paralysis is a thing. And having too many choices in life, having structure and having discipline and just focusing on monotasking rather than multitasking, I'm all for that.
Yeah. When it came to covering orthotics, I'd say, what color do you want the covers? Black or black? They go, have you got any other colors? I go, I'll go through them again. Black and black. We did eventually have tan.
Yeah, tan. Fair enough. Look,
mix it up a little.
I agree with that philosophy, right? And I think a confused mind says no. And I think that if you give people too many choices, exactly right. With treatment plans for dentistry, we give more than one, but I'd say to the staff, I'm like, look, don't give them 8 different treatment plans, right? If you know that 4 are inappropriate, don't give them to them. Be really clear. Otherwise, they just go, heck, it's just too much information. So be really clear on, look, here's your 2 best options. Here's the pros and cons of each. You choose and I'll support you whichever way you want to go. Don't give them 8 options, 4 of which are terrible ideas, right? Don't waste your time because you're just going to confuse them. So I agree. If you have too many options and you just freeze, you just go, no. Whereas, I think the thing with patients is I like the idea, we're not the hero of the journey, we're their trusted guide. So it's like you've got, in The Wizard of Oz, you've got Dorothy is the hero of the journey, we're Glenda, we're the good witch, we're their guide. But sometimes as a clinician or as a business owner, we try and be the hero of the customer's journey and we're not. Let them be the hero. We're their guide. So we're saying follow the yellow brick road. We're the ones saying that. Don't try and be their hero. So guide them. Hey, look, this is what I reckon you need, but rather than trying to be the hero of the journey. So I think that's important. And clarity is, if they'd said that you can take the yellow road or the green road or the orange road, Dorothy would still be sitting there not sure which way to go. So I think, having simple options makes a big difference.
Oh, isn't that what the Cheshire Cat did when she said which way should I go? And she was going, I don't know where I want to go. He goes, well, it doesn't matter which road you take.
Indeed. What's that? Alice in Wonderland? Is that right?
I think it's Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. I have to brush up on my Alice in Wonderland, mate, but that does ring a bell. Absolutely. So I think, giving, you can definitely give people too many options. And I think in your own life and in someone else's. So having simple things made my life easier just to focus on one thing and know which way I'm going.
But I think that works in practices like in dentistry. I'm sure there's multiple different resins you can use on people's teeth.
Yeah, totally.
And you can have dentists working for you and have all these different options on what you can use. Or you can have, this is what we use in our practice, and this is what we use for this case, and this is what we use for that. And I used to do that with our podiatry clinic. You get a new podiatrist and they go, well, where I used to work, we used this and this. And I go, well, that's great. We don't use any of them. We use this. And they go, why? And I go, because we found this is the best one. So you only have one choice. You're going to use this.
Totally right.
Yep. And
then they want to
saves in ordering. Oh, it saves in ordering.
Yeah.
You save money. You're not throwing stuff out.
We would be the same. And I said to the team, I was like, you can have any composite you want, but you've all got to agree, right? And don't come to me with 5 different ideas. Say, we only change if you all go, we've got consensus, Michael, here's what we want. Okay. Don't come to me and petition me for this and you petition me for that. You guys, I'm not going to sit here and be mum and dad and figure it out. You've got to go. We all want this one, Michael, and then we'll do it. I'm a big believer in life in core and satellite, right? So it's like 80%, 20%. So it's like, okay, cool. We can have 2 composite resins, but this is the one we use 80% of the time. And then this specific case, when it's very aesthetic, we use this one 20%, but not a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th option. And then having 1,000 different shades as well. They just go off. And then you're trying to stock them in 10 different rooms. And you're like, this is just, it's a complete waste of money. So I agree. If you've got, as we grew and we had 7 different dentists, we can't have 7 different types of filling materials, or they all want 2 different variants, and that's, you got 14, and then 10 rooms, that's 140 odd different things. And you go, no, one, this or that, A or B, black or white, not this vast array. If you've got your own practice and it's your money and you want to burn through it, you go right ahead. But otherwise, nope, this is how we do it here. And if you can't do it, it's not because the material is no good. It's because your hands aren't any good. You just need to get better at that. If I can do it, I can demonstrate to you how to do it. Then I can teach you. But if you don't want it, if you go, it's too hard, not my problem. It's my money, my practice. We're doing things this way. It can be done. I've demonstrated that. Figure it out.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So we're just going to move ahead a little bit.
All right. Yep.
Is you decide to sell your practice. You decide to sell it to like a private equity company.
Mm-hmm.
And so you took this thing over 10 years ago. After 5 years, you bought out the whole practice. 5 years later, you end up selling it. Why? Because a lot of people will be thinking, you've got this practice, you've built it up, you've got it to 10 chairs. In fact, you haven't even put a patient on that 10th chair, and you decided now is the time to walk away.
I was cooked. I was done. It came on very quickly. We had some rogue team members that were just making life difficult, and it got very stressful. And I realized how suggestible people are, and that was a real shame. It's like, because I'm a pretty straight up guy, right? And everyone knew where they stood with me. And then when you see good people who get someone in their ear and they can't meet your eye, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I kind of realized we went through a difficult period and we came out the other end, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is not fun anymore. It was always the enjoyment was really high, but the cost was high too, but the enjoyment overtook that. But then all of a sudden the enjoyment level just dropped to 0 or very close to it, and the cost was still there. So I just realized, I think I'm done. It's just occupying such a large part of my headspace. There's not much room for anything else. And I forecast forward the next 10 years. I was like, you know what? I actually don't want another 10 years like the 10 years I just had, or I certainly don't want another 10 years like the last year I had. Like, I don't want that to be the next decade of my life. So the decision to sell came on very quickly. And I say fortunately, but it wasn't good fortune. It was good planning that the business was built to sell. I'd removed key person dependency. So when it came time to sell, I was saying to you off air, it was literally 81 days between me emailing my accountant to say, hi, I think I might want to sell. How do I do it? And how do I maximize the value? And 81 days later, the money hit my account. It was sold. So in that time, I'd gone to market myself. I'd found the buyers. 4 of them had flown in from interstate to come and look through it. I'd give them information memorandum, give them the figures. They did their due diligence, sign up a non-binding indicative agreement or offer, I think it is. Then they go really through the figures to make sure that what you said is accurate. And then you get staff signed up and the money comes out. So it came on really quickly, Tyson, but I was cooked. I was just done with it. I just didn't want to keep doing it anymore, to be honest. So
I can relate to that. I think that's a good point, what you said then, though, because I know there's people who are thinking about selling their practices.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driving to work. They may have driven to work today and they've got that feeling in their stomach as they get closer to work. It gets worse, that you're thinking there's a million places I'd rather be than at work today. And it's not the patients. It's not any one particular staff member. It's not the registration boards. It's just an accumulation of things.
Yeah, so true.
And I think when you get to that point, and like I went through it as well, is you've got to be in a position to sell. And you did it and I did as well. I knew leading up to my practice, I was going to sell this at some stage. I had set everything up. When someone was going to come and look at it, it was looking schmick.
Yeah.
It was going to look really good. It wasn't going to look like it was put together with sticky tape.
Totally. Completely agree. Absolutely. Begin with the end in mind. At some point, you either get carted out in a box or you sell the thing, right? So you might as well prepare for the latter of those two and have it in in tip-top shape versus if you decide to sell and you go, do you know what, I'm 3 years from even looking like it might be in a position to sell, then you've got a grind ahead of you. So I agree. Have your business, your practice set up that it is ready to sell. And you might say, I don't want to sell yet. And I go, well, great. Neither did I. Neither did Tyson. But you might wake up one day, or maybe it's forced upon you. Maybe your health takes a decline or something like that there. And you go, now I want to sell. So there's no harm in setting it up to be ready to sell. And there's everything to gain. Why would you not want your business ready to sell? As I said, there's no drawback. It actually runs better doing it that way. And there's only upside that if that time comes, and when that time comes, that it's ready to go. So I'm a big advocate for that, of making sure that, it's your business is primed for sale all the time.
Yeah. And I like what you said too. You were no longer working on the tools.
Totally.
You probably did a little bit every now and then, but you didn't have to. I was exactly the same. I wasn't obliged to be working there. And when I sold the
100%.
practice, part of the deal was I didn't come with the practice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to work there for a certain period of time. It was sold. They took it over. It was now their business. And I know some people, their business is so heavily dependent on them.
Totally.
Which is why when they try and sell it, it's difficult, because if they walk away, the other person buying it's just buying a job.
Totally. Exactly right. All those things resonate. And I think that when I was in the same situation as you, so my contributions through my own two hands to the practice billings was 0.6%. So less than 1%, half of 1%. So I didn't have a day sheet of patients to see, get there at 8:30. And I was still registered and insured, and I'd jump in every now and then. But a patient couldn't call up and ask to see me. But it meant then that when it came time to sell, that if your business depends on you or someone else, then you don't have a true business. You've got a high paying job. It's that simple. And you need to remove that key person dependency to actually have some enterprise value that you can actually sell at the end of it. So being the key person, it's great for your ego. Everyone's asking you and everyone thinks you're the top dog and everything else. Yeah, great. But I'd rather have the money in my bank when I sell. I said about that. So I think if you want to be the main man or the main woman, all well and good, but you're not creating something that is sellable at the end. Because if all the patients then only want to see you, the value to the next person is very low, except if you're still there, which means when you do sell, guess what? They're going to get as much out of you as they can in terms of working for them for a long period of time. It's really simple maths. It's simple factoring in risk, right? That if the business is key person dependent, that's more risky. The more risky something is, the lower someone's going to pay for it. Whereas if it's risk-free or as close to risk-free as possible, then the price goes up because they're not relying on you not getting hit by a bus or you deciding not to come in. I think it makes good business sense. I know it makes good business sense to remove the business dependency on yourself and others well in advance of when you want to sell, and it makes it much more attractive to buyers.
And I think to make people feel better, if they're at that point where they go, well, I haven't really thought about, I want to sell it, but I haven't put things in place to get ready and it might take a couple of years to do it. One, they can always reach out to me if they need help. I can show them how to set it up the right way. But I think going back to what we spoke about right at the beginning, when look for someone who wants to just buy in and have an agreed value in the future that they're going to pay you out, and help them build the practice, and don't expect extra money in 5 years' time if they're in there working and building the business up. Even if you're in there working and building the business up, that's just going to be a bonus for them. Just accept that. And you're still going to get the money that you're after today. You're just going to get it in the future.
Absolutely. You can absolutely set it up for sale, but it takes time. And like you said, you know what? Be creative. Think, you know what? This young fella or this young lady who's in there now, I reckon they'd be interested. So sell them half and then understand that and figure out what they're going to pay you out in the future. But make part of the deal, look, it needs some doing up, but you're going to have to fork out for that. But they're not going to have to pay me double for that. And they're going to work their ring off in the meantime, which is going to make you feel good. And guess what? You get to work in a heaps nicer practice too, because then they're investing in something that they know is going to be theirs. They're not, suddenly their risk is less because they go, I know I can buy this other person out. So the gentleman I work with, he had the benefit of that, which is lovely. I was really happy for him. He got to work in a really swish practice that he didn't have to put his hand in his pocket for it. And that was great. And I said to him as well, you don't have to tell people that I'm the owner of the business and the building. They don't need to know that. Tell them you own it. I don't care. It's fine. I'm happy for you to show it off as your own. You don't have to go, Michael this, Michael that, Michael something else. If someone's listening to this and they're that bit older and you've got some young buck coming through, then get your money, get a fair price, but then let them take that on if you can't be bothered or you don't want to do that. And that's okay too. You'll still come to the arrangement that's fair for both of you, that you both know what you're getting. And there's still plenty of upside in going, now I just get to ride this thing out and work on work with someone else who's energetic and young and wants to put the energy and effort and money into it and ride off into the sunset and enjoy it.
There's something my boxing coach has said to me, and it's like, don't get greedy.
Yeah.
I said to him ages ago, How come you'll see people in boxing match and they'll go like, everything seems to be 3 and 4 combinations and then they step back out again. And he said, because you might hit them, go 1, 2, 3, and you think you've got them. He said, but if you stay in there and think and get greedy and keep trying to punch them, they could just all of a sudden just reach up and hit you unexpectedly, and you're going to be sitting, your bum will be on the ground. He said, so they punch a little bit, they step back, they reassess, then they go back in, and then they step back out and they go back in. And I think when it comes to selling your business, sometimes you just got to not be greedy, because if you stay in there wanting more than what you deserve, you could get sat on your ass.
Bang on. I love boxing. That's a really cool analogy. And I'll think about it next time I watch a fight. But I agree. And I saw that happen, right? So I saw that happen here where a colleague of mine offered a really good price to buy out the person she was working with. And I know it was a good price. And they got greedy. They said no. And I turned to my wife. I said, hun, I want you to make sure that never happens to me. If at some point someone offers me an amazing offer, I want you to say to me, shake their hand and say thank you and be done with it. Because this person didn't. They said, oh, no, I think they were greedy. And guess what? She ended up doing something else and the practice fell to crap, right? So at some point, you got to go, I always took the view, I optimized a whole lot of things. But when I came down to sell it, if I don't squeeze every last dollar out of it, I'm okay with that because I've done pretty well along the way, right? And I think you're right. You can get greedy. There's practices for sale that are stale now. They've been in the market for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Because at some point, someone would have made an offer. And at some point, that probably was a fair offer. But they always think they can get more. And they end up having to stick around, which stuffs up your quality of life. So I think it's a really good point. I like that boxing is, don't get greedy. Don't swing for the fences. Just at some point, you kind of got to go, do you know what? It's not quite what I would have absolutely top dollar loved, but it's a fair price. And if I want to be done with this thing, shake their hand, shut up and say thank you, sign the papers and be done with it and get on with your life. I like that. Yeah, don't be greedy.
Because I've seen a lot of practices, not just podiatrists and physio medical practices. It's the same thing where they've been made an offer and it's a fair offer. Yeah. It's not a great offer, but it's a fair offer. And they're only getting offered, say, 70% of what they're asking for. And they end up saying no. And then 5 years later, they close the doors and they got nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They could have sold 5 years earlier and walked off with a certain amount of money and gone on to that next stage in life. And they didn't do it.
And isn't that sad? And do you know what? I reckon heaps of people have that happen to them. Much fewer, a lot fewer than what would admit to it as well. I think a lot of people would be in that exact situation and going, I had an offer and I didn't take it. And they end up, shutting the doors or selling for half as much 5 years down the track. And they're like, I wish I just... So I think it's a really good thing of sometimes just don't be greedy. If it's a fair offer and you go, look, it's not optimal, but it's fair, take it. It's not even as a financial thing, but it's like a lifestyle thing of just going, this is in the ballpark. Take it and be done with it and move on with your life. If you're ready to sell, like for me, it wasn't so much. I mean, obviously I wanted to get fair value for it, but I wanted to get on with my life, Tyson. So I was happy to accept a fair value. I was surprised it was of what it was worth, which was great in a positive sense. But I would have ultimately, the market value was what it was. The offers were all very tightly bound around the same sort of figure. But it was a lifestyle thing. It's like, I need to get enough to pay off my debts and be done with it, but I just want to be done with it. So for me, I was super comfortable with that.
And can I ask you a question? Would you have taken less?
Oh, I don't know. I might have to answer that off air. But what I'll do is I'll tell you a story about this. I've said before, right? So the buyers come in and they're professional buyers. They're private equity. They're in the business of buying businesses. Okay. So what I'd say is I was realistic with my appraisal of what I thought the business was worth. Okay. And the offers came in, they were higher than that, but that's probably because I undershot what I thought, right? But they were all very tightly bound. So no one came in with some Godfather offer that was like, wow, they just must really want it. All the offers were very close. So anyway, the private equity came in, they're like, oh, what do you want for it? And I said to them, look, I'm not going to nominate a figure for 2 reasons. One is if I overshoot and it's not worth that much, there's no point. Like what I've just said, it doesn't make any sense. But likewise, if I say the figure and then if it ends up the market value is more and other people offer more, but you shoot for a little bit more than what I said, you're going to lose out because I'm going to go for the higher one. So what I think it's worth doesn't matter as stuff. I said, what matters is the market value. So I said, it's a competitive process. Everyone's getting the same information. You're not the only people I'm speaking to. I'm giving this information to 3 other parties as well. Put in your best offer, but absolutely be aware that the market will set the rate. So come back to me with your very, very best offer. Other people are looking at it. Other people are going to put their offers in too. And the market rate was what it was. And as I said, it was all very similar. So I knew very clearly what it was worth because all the offers were, within 5% of each other.
Yeah. And it wasn't asking like, would you have taken a lot less? I'm just saying if it had to come under just what you even thought it was worth, because we were talking before where somebody might want a certain price and it's not quite where they want it.
Yeah. Look, so the short answer, one word answer is yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if the banding was, if the best offer was less than what I got, yeah, I absolutely would have.
It's like even when I sold my practice, I did the same thing. I didn't tell them what I wanted for it. I said, you just make one offer. And if it's in the ballpark of what I wanted, then we'll shake on it. And it was better than what I wanted. We shook on it and it was a done deal.
So similar. So yeah, absolutely. I knew what I couldn't go under. I was like, I can't go under this because I need the debts to pay off. So the offers were all more than that. So that was, but absolutely, as I said, I think getting in my head, this is a lifestyle decision that I wasn't selling to try and eke every last bit out of it. So yeah, if it turned out that the offers were a little bit less than what they were, then yep, I would have still been done with it as long as I could cover off on everything. And yeah, so that's the answer is yes. So I guess to come back to it, I'd agree with what we talked about of just shake the hand, say thank you, and be done with it.
Don't be greedy.
100%. Don't be greedy.
Duck and weave and step back. Don't be
totally
greedy.
Step back and mount a second assault. 100%.
Okay, Michael, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast. It'll be fun catching up with you. We haven't spoken 100%. For a couple of years, actually.
Correct.
And so this has been great. When I heard that you sold your practice and then I saw you on the Savvy Dentist podcast, I watched that episode and I listened to that episode. And as soon as I listened to it, I said, yeah, I want to get you on. It's just because that was probably 6 or 9 months ago you're on that.
That's a good question. Yeah, actually it would be. Yeah, about 6 months, I reckon. Yep.
Yeah.
Was that one. Yeah. So
so as soon as I heard that and I said it to Jesse Green, I said, I'm going to get Michael on the podcast. He said, you should. He said it's a great story that you've gone through. So I want to thank you for coming on here, sharing your wisdom, sharing your story, and I hope all the podiatrists that have listened to this all the way through have taken away as much from it as what I have.
No, thank you very much, Tyson. I really appreciate your friendship, and it's really great to chat with you. And you're a clever guy. So yeah, your listeners, take all this in, right? Because you've got a really good source here who knows his way around podiatry and business more generally, and there's a lot there to be gained. So spend your time listening to it, and you will learn a lot just by listening through not just this podcast, the other ones too. So thank you for your time, Tyson, mate. Really enjoyed it. It's been fun to chat.
No, it's been great catching up. Thank you.
Cool. Happy days.
Okay, how good was this episode today with Dr. Michael Filosi? If there's one lesson I hope you take away from today's conversation is this: great businesses don't happen by accident. Michael didn't buy the best dental practice in Adelaide. He bought one with possums in the roof, outdated systems, paper appointment books, no computers, no answering machine. Most people walked away from it because they saw what it was, whereas Michael saw what it could become. That mindset is something every podiatrist should adopt. Whether you're buying your first clinic, growing your current practice, or thinking about selling in the next 5 or 10 years, start making decisions today that your future self will thank you for. Also loved Michael's advice about planning your exit even before you enter. If you're bringing in an associate or selling part of your practice, agree on the exit while everybody is still excited about the opportunity. It avoids resentment later and gives both parties a lot of certainty. And another point that really resonated with me was when he talked about removing himself as the key person in the business. That's something I have spoken about for years. If your practice can't operate without you, then you don't really own a business yet. You just have a demanding job. And finally, and this is something I mentioned during the recording, is don't get greedy. Throw your combination, step back, reassess, then go again. Too many practice owners chase just for that last little bit more, only to lose everything they already had. Sometimes a fair deal today is far better than no deal 5 years from now. So ask yourself this week, if someone wanted to buy your practice tomorrow, would it be ready? If the answer is no, maybe it's time to start working on the business just as much as working in the business. And that is exactly what I help podiatrists do. So I want to thank Michael again for joining me and sharing his journey so openly. It was absolutely fantastic. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, share it with another podiatrist, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. Anyway, that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.